Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So I'm sure you've already read the title and you know what this is about. It's about crash dieting and why you probably shouldn't be doing it. Now, before we actually get into this, I want you to first go and watch my video on what a calorie is, which I will leave a link to down there in the description below. Because as I falsely tried to in my last video, or failed to, I pointed up here, and apparently you can't actually add end screen videos at the beginning of your video. So that was a bit of a whoopsie on my part. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to break it up into 4 parts. First off, obviously, what is a crash diet? Why crash diets are bad? Why I myself attempted a crash diet? And then why I think my crash diet was actually beneficial to me and not so bad as some other crash diets. So let's just get straight up and into the first one. So what is a crash diet? Well, what most normal people consider a crash diet is a diet where you're in a deficit of over 500 calories, or you're just in some crazy deficit. But what I like to think of it as is something that's unsustainable. Because once again, we're bringing in that word sustainability, which we should have in all of our diets. If you're going on a diet, you shouldn't be starving yourself. It should be sustainable. You should be able to live off this diet happily without being hungry, being satisfied for the rest of your life. And crash diets, for the most part, are simply unsustainable. This gets on to point number 2, why they're bad. Well, the unsustainability of the crash diet is one of the main points of why the crash diet itself is bad. Because once you reach your goal or your target or whatever it is you're trying to get down to, once you get down to that body fat, you're probably not going to be able to stick to the diet, and you're not going to be able to continue dieting after all that is said and done. So you're going to go back to the ways you were. You might stay shredded or lean for a couple months, but you'll be going back to your old diet, and you'll soon, quickly enough, put that weight back on, and then all of that time you crash dieted and starved yourself and just had an unpleasant experience overall. It's practically a waste, because you've just gone back to the way you were, and you're back at the start, and you're gonna have to diet it over and over and over again in order to get back in that shape. So that's one reason why we avoid crash diets. Now, the second reason that we can avoid crash diets is because, well, if any of you take chemistry or have basic knowledge of chemistry, you might have come across Le Chatelier's principle, which is basically, if you do shit to something, then that thing is going to try to counteract it. That is an exact quote from Le Chatelier. Not really. But anyways, yeah, that's basically how the human body works as well. So for example, if I were to eat more food, then obviously that food would have a thermogenic effect and raise my metabolism, because I'd have to work hard to digest that more food. It would raise my body temperature, and overall my calorie expenditure would go up. Unfortunately, not enough to actually counteract the amount of food that I'm putting into my body. So at the end of the day, you're still going to get obese off of this. It's not magic. But that also works the other way around, where if you're crash dieting and you go into a caloric deficit that's way too, just completely crazy. Like, I think I'm currently eating 3,000 calories. When I did my diet, I was eating 1,500 calories. So that's half of what I'm eating now on my bulk. So if you're going in some crazy deficit, your body's going to be like, oh no, we're not getting the nutrition that we need. And it's going to try to lower your metabolism as much as possible so that the calories that you're intaking are actually your daily calorie expenditure, which is not a good thing, because within the first few weeks you may lose a lot of fat, but eventually you will hit a plateau because your body's basically going into this starvation mode where it's saying, well, we need to hold on to as much fat and as much everything as we can and just completely crash your metabolism. And that's one of the things that happened to me over my time during crash dieting. I crashed my metabolism, and when I went back up to where I was previously eating and what I would consider my basal metabolic rate, or basic like daily calorie expenditure, I was gaining weight because I'd crashed my metabolism, and my metabolism was in fact so low after that that even at, well, where I previously was, well, that was more calories than my body needed because it was still in the starvation mode. So, as great as crash diets are, they plateau very quickly, and your body does not like them. So that's another reason. And for the third reason is just, I know the majority of people that crash diet aren't bodybuilders, and they're not into like, oh, I need to like conserve muscle or anything, but you're gonna lose a lot of muscle. Basically, the greater the caloric deficit, the more likely you are to lose muscle in your diet. So, crash dieting isn't really the best for keeping muscle on. So for your average person, they might not care that much about it, but if you're into bodybuilding and you want to keep your muscle on, just a slight caloric deficit over an extended period of time is much better than a crash diet, and you don't have to risk all of the other things like going back or crashing your metabolism, etc. So that is why they are bad. Now, what did I do during my crash diet? Well, I just said that I was crash dieting on 1,500 calories, and I think I crash dieted for, well, I wouldn't even consider this a crash diet. In fact, I was very happy with the amount of calories that I was consuming, and I'll get onto that in just a second. But yeah, I was crash dieting on 1,500 calories, which is way below what I would normally be eating. And well, first off, the reason that I did this was because obviously I was injured, summer's coming up, and the injury put me out of the gym for 2 months. If you guys want a whole separate video on my injury, because it didn't actually get resolved, and I had a lot of physiotherapy sessions, and well, physiotherapists are shit. I ended up just resolving it on my own through like my own sort of therapeutic, sort of going to the gym and light weights, etc. But yeah, so that 2 months that I had to take off at the gym, that put me behind a lot on all of my progress and all of like my bulking and everything. And I was like, right, summer's coming up, I'm 2 months behind, I just need to cut and get into shape. So that's basically why I did a crash diet, and well, it kind of worked because I was already relatively lean, so I got down to an even leaner state where I was happy. And this is where I actually think that the crash diet benefited me. Because with most crash diets, it's just people that don't know any better, they don't know about nutrition, and they're just going on the internet and they're Googling like, oh, best diets or whatever, and they're going on some keto diet, or they're doing intermittent fasting and they're not getting enough calories in and they're starving themselves for half the day. But, well, for the first week or so, I was hungry. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. But I was on 1,500 calories for 2 months, so this actually taught me a lot because I wasn't on any specific diet that I found on the internet. I just solely said to myself, I'm doing 1,500 calories and I will stick to this. And I had no outside help from the internet. I didn't follow a diet course. I just purely did this on my own. So I had to figure out and go out of my way to find foods that were like calorically less dense, more satiating, how to get my protein intake in, because obviously when you're dieting, you want your protein intake to be 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, more likely to leaning towards that 1 gram per pound of body weight, because, well, your body's in a caloric deficit, and once it runs out of carbohydrates, it's going to start burning off protein in order to use it as energy, and then that's just less protein for the muscles. So that's generally why we up our protein when we are dieting. And not only that, but protein is more satiating in general. So this allowed me to basically find foods and find a diet that fit with my lifestyle and how I just expand my food taste in general and what I ate. And I managed to come up with a diet where I was eating 1,500 calories a day. I had about 5 meals. They were evenly split up. I learned to time my meals. I learned how many calories I should be eating in each meal to keep me satiated through the next meal, and what type of food should be in those meals to keep them low calorie and satiating so that I won't actually feel hungry. So I learned a lot throughout this process, and towards the end of it, I'd actually learned so much that I didn't revert back to my old ways. So I don't really consider it a crash diet because it was sustainable for me. I could happily eat 1,500 calories a day following that same diet to this very day, and I would be more than happy. I would just lose too much weight and too much muscle in the process. So that's basically why I consider my crash diet a success. And if you are going to crash diet, I think that's the way you should do it. You should take this as a step to learn and to discover more about calories and foods and what foods you enjoy that are low calorie and satiating, and where you can get your protein intake from on such a low caloric intake, and just general things like that. Take it as a learning experience, as did I. So by the end of it, I actually knew a lot more about nutrition, and it was one of the things that got me really into counting calories. So by the second month, I slowly started to raise my calories up by 200 calories per week. So it wasn't exactly a crash diet where I just come off of it and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Let's just move on. I can bulk now, or I can go back to my regular diet. I've met my goals. No, I was like, all right, I'm not going back to my regular diet and getting fat again. I'm going to slowly come off of this thing and get my body used to eating just like a little bit more. I'm not going to pig out. I'm going to stick to my diet. I'm going to stick to sustainable foods so that I don't end up pigging out. And overall, I think it worked, because even though I did crash my metabolism, that's kind of an easy fix. You just raise your calories back up to where they should be, and pretty soon, about within a week, your body will realize, like, I'm no longer starving, so I can, well, raise my metabolism back up, and I'm no longer crashed, so you're good to go. It just means that if you crash diet, you often will need to take times where you go back and you eat at what you normally would eat, and you'll put on a few pounds. So it's really debatable whether it's worth it or not in the end, because you will end up having to reset your metabolism every now and again, because, well, you will crash it while doing a crash diet. It's kind of in the name, crash diet, and it's kind of implied. So with that said, I can't recommend that you guys do crash diets. It's just that I personally did enjoy the crash diet because it taught me so much about nutrition and so much about food that I use to this very day, and I use it throughout all my meals. So just do with that knowledge what you will, and don't go blindly into something just being like, oh, I'm gonna hit up this keto diet, I'm gonna hit up this whatever diet. Research your diets, look into the calories, look into everything, okay? Be your own nutritionist. research this stuff, find out what it is, find out what it'll do to your body, and then once you found that out, well, go ahead and do it and try it and see what it does to your body. And then once you've seen what it does to your body, you can either you can evaluate that, and then you can go back and be like, well, it did this to my body which I didn't like, so next time I do this sort of diet, I can alleviate that by maybe adding more calories or something, going into a slightly less extreme deficit, but it also did this to my body and I enjoyed that, so we can keep this portion of it for next time. And overall, just be your own scientist. Don't rely on other people for help. Because, well, I say that, but you should rely on other people for help, but don't just take their word blindly. Research it yourself and make sure what they're giving you is the truth and nothing but the truth. So with that said, that is basically crash dieting, how my crash diet went, why you shouldn't crash diet, and just in general what it is. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I'll have some more coming up soon. The next ones will probably be on bulking and how to go about bulking, and then obviously I'll do the dirty bulk afterwards, as I did with this series, the good on the bad, and then I'll contrast them. So if you didn't end up enjoying the video, don't forget to hit a like, ring the bell button, well, after you subscribe obviously, and go down and comment anything you want. Any videos you want to see upcoming? Well, small channel once again, guys. I appreciate all of your comments, I appreciate all of your support, so just go ahead. Go down there and comment anything you want, and I will fit it into my next video. If you want a shout out or something from my 21 subscriber YouTube channel, then go ahead, leave your name in the comment, and I'll be like, shout out to Mr. I don't even know. And there you go. But anyways, yeah, thank you. So, video here, link to sub here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed.